Ashlock is one of those operators that released, and everyone thought, excuse me? What is this? And while the general consensus around Ashlock is that she's okay, I want to take the time to tell you why I love Ashlock, and so should you. Ashlock is a fortress defender, the first of her archetype, and the only other member of this archetype currently is Horn, who hasn't released on the global server yet, so we won't be talking about that too much. How it works is Ashlock has both a melee and a ranged attack. She prioritizes melee attacks when she is blocking something, and uses an AoE ranged attack that deals physical damage when not blocking anything. And of course they have to be in range. Keep in mind that the range attack cannot hit flying units. The range in question is kinda reminiscent of Besieger snipers like Rosa and Torifons, mainly because they have a dead zone immediately in front of them where they cannot attack. However, as Besiegers have only one row, Ashlock has two dead rows, and the area at the end is not as wide, so keep that in mind. In terms of stats, there's basically two things you need to know. Her attack is good, and her cost is high. The other stats are fairly average for a defender, but this is kind of irrelevant, and I'll get to why in a moment. So Ashlock's first skill is Attack Up. Yeah, that's it. It goes up to 100% for 30 seconds on a 30-second cooldown, and to be fair, 100% is pretty alright considering her base attack is over 900 when including the trust bonus, and it's even more if you factor in her talent, which just gives more attack with a few conditions. However, from experience, I have never ever found a use for skill 1. I've seen it used in like one Defender Knight's clear back in Pinus Sylvestris that Tums did. But this skill is really like Mudrock's skill 1. You don't really ever use it, and if you are, I have to question why you're using her in the first place. Basically what I'm saying is don't mastery this skill, it's not worth your time or your resources. Ashlock's second skill, Focused Bombardment, is the skill you'll be using 99% of the time. At Mastery 3, the skill reduces her block to 0, meaning she cannot block anything. It disables her melee attack, reduces attack interval, and increases her attack by a mediocre amount. The skill lasts 10 seconds and recharges every 18 seconds, so while it's not up for that long, it will be back up when you need it. To get into the nitty-gritty of the skill, it doesn't just reduce her block by 3, it actually sets it to 0. And the only real reason why this distinction is important is if you have Nian's skill 3 or Pallas skill 3. It doesn't give her the extra block while those skills are active because her block is 0. The attack interval reduction is minus 65%, so she attacks a bit over once every second, and the area of effect is essentially the same as an AoE sniper without being able to hit aerial enemies. If you want to use Ashlock, it is absolutely necessary to Mastery 3 this skill. The main difference between Mastery 2 and Mastery 3 is the attack interval reduction goes from 50% to 65%. To quantify this, at Mastery 2, she attacks every 1.4 seconds, and at Mastery 3, it's every second. And I hope you can appreciate how much of a difference that is. It also feels way better to use, and if you are using Ashlock in integrated strategies, for example, and you don't promote her, it's gonna feel really bad. I'm just gonna warn you right now. So now that you know how it works, the question is of course, why? I'll be the first to admit that Ashlock is not some secretly broken operator that's gonna carry you through the game. I think she has the same downfall as anti-air snipers really, which is a relatively low attack value in exchange for attacking rapidly, which is not ideal considering how physical damage is calculated, since armor is a flat reduction in damage. I'm not going to claim that Ashlock is a be-all end-all, but what I will say is that Ashlock is genuinely the most fun I've ever had with an operator. Something about how you can bombard your enemies with a cannon from afar is so satisfying. And there is a part of me that likes it even more because it's not really a meta thing. You can ask anyone who plays Arknights, and they'll probably tell you that every operator is viable somewhere. And while realistically that's not the whole truth, Ashlock certainly falls into a special niche in the game currently: ranged AoE physical damage from a ground unit. Now yes, there are some skills and units that deal physical damage in an area effect while being on the ground, but I have to ask, how many of them have a skill that rotates this quickly? How many of them have the incredible range that Ashlock has? How many of them have defender-like stats that make them pretty difficult to kill? I was hard-pressed to answer these questions because really when you look at it, there are no operators like this. Ashlock is truly one of a kind. Well, at least right now, until a certain someone comes to global, but like I said, we won't talk about that. Something I love about Ashlock is how surprisingly flexible she is. Having range in the way that she does opens up so many ways to deal with various problems that you might have, and I've certainly found myself always considering the possibility of bringing Ashlock to a stage in the same way that having Ifrit kind of ruins how you see straight lines forever. Invitation to Wine is a great example of this, as I've been using her to clean up those swarms of charms while she's in Narnia at the same time. Another great example is in Break the Ice, where her incredible range makes Deckenbrecher kind of a joke. Ashlock also trivializes stages like 716, where she basically cheeses the entire gimmick of the stage, and this is not even to mention her capabilities when you start adding in buffs and debuffs to amplify her damage. So far, I've just been talking about Ashlock like she's some sort of really long-ranged guard that's just all DPS, no utility, nothing else. And that's because that's what Ashlock is. She is a DPS, a damage dealer. Do not be fooled into thinking she's a defender in the same way that you shouldn't really consider Eunectus a defender. Ashlock is 3 squirrels in a trench coat claiming to be a defender, and when you decide to be kind and take them in out of the rain, they whip out a giant-ass cannon and suddenly all your pulls for Spectre Altar are gone. If you want a strong defender that will actually defend you, Bison is better, Quora is better, Hoshiguma is better. If you want a clear high-risk CC, Ashlock is probably not making the cut for your team because she just doesn't really bring enough to the table. But is there an enemy somewhere over the rainbow? Some high priority target on a tile that you can't deploy an operator on? Maybe there's just swarms of enemies, and you're tired of counting on Meteorite to crit for once in her damn life. Well, have I got the solution for you? And what do you know? She just so happens to be on banner right now.